introduction. Hello, everybody. This is the IOTA Shimmer weekly governance call. We are here in the IOTA Discord, talk about governance, talk about the Shimmer Treasury, and yeah, today we have a few updates for everyone. So I thought I make a little slide and agenda stuff again. So basically, also I'm for a little to orientate myself, and want to give a couple of updates around what is happening in preparation for the hopefully soon be voted on in Community Treasury, so that basically everybody is a bit up to date and you all kind of know what is happening in the back. Let's say it like this. Do you see my screen? Yeah, should be shared. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
We see it.
Yeah. So I also, you see, I switched to the Shimmer branding colors and stuff like this. Basically, what to talk about? Everything around the Shimmer Community Treasury. I would basically just like to give you a walkthrough how we are currently planning to really kickstart the whole Treasury as soon as there would be a positive vote by the community to establish this thing. Because, I mean, we are all waiting since many, many months, building and developing and waiting again and stuff. And so, actually, the good thing is we had enough time to really prepare things, and this should make it easy and possible to kind of quickly start this whole thing and to enable basically acceptance of grant proposal quite soonish after the vote. Let's say it like this. And to do this, we basically work on prepare everything and make a super easy and smooth transition into operation possible if the voters would want to have a treasury and a committee. So basically, everything would kind of start because we know that we are still not finalized with the Marshall Island DAO thing, but I'll talk about that also. But basically, let's say the day after we have finalized and community verified results of the vote, and it would be positive, the Tangle Ecosystem Association would be ready to take the elected grant reviewers under a service contract as an intermediate bridge until Marshall Island DAO is established. And under this service contract with TEA, the grant reviewer members, the committee members, would have the needed liability protection and legal base to start operating or basically preparing to operate the grant committee. Yeah. This will mean that they will sign service provider contracts with the TEA. Those contracts will just be in place as long as TEA offers its, let's say, umbrella or legal shield. And as soon Marshall Island is operational, these contracts will be terminated and everything will move to Marshall Islands. The next thing that would be possible needed is to do KIC, as this is one of the requirements of the proposal that the 5 grant reviewers will need to do KIC. I checked with Audit One, which is a great little thing. I used it already for my Sooniverse stuff, and it works very flawlessly. And they have a KIC solution in house, and so I thought, hey, why not use one of our ecosystem teams for this instead of just using a random KIC provider from outside? And that would be available. This is a process, basically, if you have your passport at hand, it takes 10 minutes. Also not expensive. Yeah? Question?
Hold away.
Yeah. No question? Or okay. And the important thing is basically that because there will be somebody basically requesting or this KIC, and so basically this would be TEA, and TEA would um, would contract with the with Audit One to be the one that receives the KIC data from the grant reviewers, and we have already made sure that TEA can transfer all this data it receives later into the Marshall Island DAO. There will be anyway a transfer of all rights and all intellectual property and whatever the grant committee would create under the umbrella of the TEA for this couple of weeks. Everything of this will be moved over into the hands of the DAO. There will be there is a legal term for this. It's like an IP license thing or whatever. But it's already kind of prepared, and so nothing will stay in TEA, and nothing will stay owned by TEA, and everything will go into the hand of the Marshall Island DAO as soon as this thing is possible to operate. Okay, so we would start with signing the contracts, doing KIC. Then there will need to be kind of like an establishing meeting, and the committee members will need to set up the Gnosis multi-signature wallet on Binance Smart Chain. Yeah? For this, all committee members need to have hardware wallets to have this thing secure, that not stuff happened like I told you with me now. And set up this multisig wallet, which is not a complex thing. And then they would be able to receive funds. Next step is that they would need to vote for the co-lead. Yeah, so there will be an elected lead from the vote from the community, but a part of the framework is also that the committee member comes together and votes for one person to be basically the co-lead in case that the lead gets sick or is not available or whatever. And yeah, then this is something we can talk later about potentially setting up some social media stuff like the Twitter account and basically open the application process on the Treasury website to receive the first grant applications, likely. Yeah. There might also be some need for set up some email addresses and all stuff, but this can be done, I think, then in between the committee members in the meeting and in the internal communication. What is important for the community, but also for TEA, both entities here really want the same thing. TEA will limit its influence on whatever the grant committee does to the absolute minimum that is needed to have legal valid contracts. And so basically we will do texts basically that say like invoices and stuff like this that let's say the grant reviewers after the first month they will issue their invoice in how much fees they get for the how many hours and things like this. Nothing of this will be handled over to TEA or to IOTA Finance or stuff like this. Basically, the committee will organize and handle all this stuff already by themselves. Yeah, TEA doesn't want to do that. We also it will take a long time and stuff like this, and it's not needed because the committee should operate as independent as possible. Yeah, and then to start really operation, this whole thing needs to be supplied with a budget, with tokens, with in the beginning USDT, because we won't have the Gnosis multisig wallet ready to accept Shimmer tokens on Shimmer net. So we thought the first capital intrusion into the committee would need then to be on Binance Smart Chain, cheap fees, and basically give them 100K US dollar that would be sold OTC, so it would not be sold on the market. It would not crash the price and things like this. But 100K Shimmer tokens would be sold OTC to somebody. And this USDT will go then into the multisig wallet of the grant committee. And from this initial capital, the grant committee can start spending. Yeah? One of the first things they will need to spend is the setup fee for the Marshall Island DAO, to start really the process of getting the Marshall Island DAO verified and licensed in Marshall Islands. So these are 9,500 US dollar, and this likely will be one of the first transactions that they do. Then, but that's not so important. Dom has paid everything that the lawyer currently costs, but that's just 750 euro until now. This also then can be transferred back to Dom, so that and any further lawyer costs can then also be taken by the committee. And if there's already a grant application, the committee could start giving out grants at this point. Yeah, as soon as they have tokens in their wallet, the whole thing is set up, is operational, and the committee could begin giving out grants if they have good applications coming in. So basically, this would be kind of the start. And I don't know, I'm bad in ETAs or I'm bad in timing, but from my feeling, I think this whole process could be done in a week after we have the vote result. It's not really much. Signing the contracts, doing KYC, setting up the multisig wallet, getting tokens into the multisig wallet. That should be doable in a couple of days, I would say. Yeah. Don't know if anyone disagrees, but it shouldn't be something that will take weeks. Yeah, that I don't think, because everything is prepared. The rules are set for the Treasury Committee and something like this. So there's not much things that can go wrong here. Yeah? Okay. If you have any questions or something, or as always, just scream in, because I don't see what you're doing, and I hope if you can't follow, you just ask and see what's going on. Basically, let me see.
Well, and I was going to say, you know, I built the website, and I'm happy to, you know, I'm trying to put a proposal for it, and if the community wants to accept it, you know, and I kind of just looked at things as, you know, what happens that once the vote, if it's positive, you know, yes, we can accept grant applications, but then how does that process go? You know, is someone just going to email the delegated program lead, and how's it done in a transparent process? And if, you know, if we waited till the vote and then built the website, it would probably take, you know, anywhere from 2 to 6 months to build it. So I kind of myself took a risk of, hey, I'm going to build this thing. I'm going to put time and money into it. And, you know, if the vote's positive and if the community wants to use it, they can. And if they don't, then, hey, that's on me. I took the risk on it. So, you know, I'll try to get this proposal out, and then, you know, maybe the committee, whoever the lead ends up being, or if it's me, of course, I would abstain from any discussion on it. But if the committee members and the community would like to use it, they can certainly use it. And part of the proposal I'm writing that, you know, regardless of if someone else's program lead, I'm handing the website over for, you know, all intellectual property, and essentially training the program lead and the co-lead, which is not really difficult. It's all no code stuff, how to manage it from there on out. And so that would be one option if the community wanted that from day one, we could accept proposals through using that website. And then it would all just be transparent. Same thing on the expenses and everything like that. Like, it doesn't have to be through the TIA. It would all be done through that website. The website has a user login for the reviewers that they could submit all their invoices, and then it will show, because that is transparent, but no personal information. So whatever if someone, let's just say, has a Web3 degen name, I mean, that's how they go by in the community. That's how it's showed publicly. Anything on the KYC end or payment wise is all private, of course, because that's all personal information. But on the transparency side to the community is, hey, we spent this much in salaries, and that's all automated and shown.
No. And that's really good. And then I think whatever is the outcome, transferring all these assets, if JD is okay with it, or if he's the committee lead, then anyway, I think he's going to be okay with it. But this is stuff then that would basically go into the intellectual property of the DAO. So that is not basically controlled or owned by a single person, but it's controlled
Yes.
and owned by the community then, and is always going to stay in the control of the community in the future also. Yeah.
Yeah, and there wouldn't all rights handed over, so no one can say like, "Oh, you owe me this later on," you know, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so basically this has been the TEA process. And then let's basically think about how this whole thing, let's say there will be a couple of weeks. I know I'm bad in ETAs, but basically what we know is that from the time when we submit the so-called operational agreement draft, basically, or the proposed operational agreement of the Marshall Island DAO LLC to the authorities in Marshall Island, it should take 30 to 50 days after they have received it until you get an approved and a finalized registered DAO in the Marshall Island. Yeah? So let's say, as we are currently drafting and preparing everything, we would be able to pay in a couple of days after the vote these $9,500. Together with this, the operational agreement would be submitted to the Marshall Island DAO. So let's say 6 to 8 weeks, maybe after the vote, it would be possible to transfer the whole operation of this thing from the Swiss association into the community-owned DAO LLC in the Marshall Islands. Like I said, the contracts with TEA of the grant reviewers will then be terminated. I would propose that the committee sets up a new multisig wallet with a new address for Marshall Island. Basically, that you have then a trail on the blockchain actually transfer the assets from the old address, which was basically operated under TEA, to the new address in the Marshall Islands, and transfer the IP from TEA to Marshall Island, which is a contract between those two organizations, and sign the new contracts with the Marshall Island DAO LLC. These are also starting to get prepared currently. And then this whole thing can continue its operation under the legal entity of the Marshall Islands and is fully then in the control of the community. Some more details about this whole Marshall Island thing. Minimum one person needs to be doxed and KIC'd with the Marshall Island government because it is still kind of a company, and so some of the usual company and LLC laws that are worldwide implemented still holds also for this one, even if it is very, very, very decentralized and very, very DAO-like, still one person, and this will be the program lead, will do KIC with the Marshall Islands, and this will be the only managing member, and in the absence of the lead, the co-lead will also be able to fulfill such managing tasks. These tasks are very, very limited. Basically, it's only signing contracts. Maybe you need a subscription for a domain name, or you need a subscription for a certain tool like Notion or Airtable. a person has to sign such contracts, and these will be um, the the managing members, but they will be regulated by the governance framework and the specification for the Treasury Committee that we all together have designed. The really good thing on this Marshall Island thing is that they are basically saying, okay, whatever rules you want this thing to be operated under, yeah, you can operate under your own rules as long as you follow the basic principles of being a non-profit organization, that the main purpose of this thing is not to make money and not to operate a profit-oriented business. And as long as you stay under these conditions, the internal rules, how the organization is managed, governed, and operated, can completely be freely designed, besides a very few small details that are needed for stuff like money laundering and things like this. Yeah, so what we are able to do is we are able to say, okay, the Shimmer governance framework document and the Shimmer Community Treasury specification document, which is part of the proposal of the vote, will be the rule set under which this whole Marshall Island LLC operates. And that's the really cool thing on this whole Marshall Island thing, that they basically let you do whatever you want, as decentralized as you want, with all on-chain voting and things like this. Um, and that's the cool thing, and this is why I'm pretty happy that we went now this way, and that they also changed a couple of their setups, so everything is really easier now.
Could I jump in here?
Yeah.
Just as a quick comment, having gone through this with the ICCD before, initially they said the same thing with 30 to 60 days after submission of the operating agreement, and it took about 5 months or so for us to, and it could be just because we were one of the first ones to go through the process.
Yeah.
But my recommendation would be to get that operating agreement in as fast as possible and give them plenty of time, because if we can't get any funds into the notice until it's finished, we're going to be waiting a while if they're still backed up.
Absolutely.
So-
What I really heard is, I think you have been the DAO with the longest setup time of all the ones that they created. So you really got unlucky in that. And the good thing is that the operational agreement is currently, so we are going through with Paolo, the lawyer from Italy, from LexDAO, through that, and the operational agreement is already in the making, and we are basically in draft version 3 and have it, in our opinion, on a very, very good state, so that it basically can be submitted directly once basically the vote has happened to the Marshall Island authorities. And as we have heard from Paolo, he has done it a couple of times, and from other DAOs, unlucky for you, but all the others have been in the range of this time frame. Yeah.
Yeah, when I did the interview with the different lawyers, Swedish, Liechtenstein, and Marshall Islands, I asked Adam that exactly. I was like, so like, what's the lead time here? Because ICC DAO didn't really match the 6 to 8 week deal, and he laughed. He said, no, they learned a lot from that process. It was very unfortunate, but they've refined it since then. And then I asked him what the biggest lead time in the setup is, and he said it always comes down to for them now the operating agreement. So that's where we secured Paulo and got him working on the operating agreement. So that should be done by the time things were ready to form with the Marshall Islands, and then and the operating agreement. And the nice thing about Marshall Islands is you can put that essentially this operating agreement will follow the Treasury framework. For this is the GitHub and the latest version as an annex. So the operating agreement in legal terms basically says we're following exactly what the community says how to run this DAO, which is kind of nice. Where Sweden and Liechtenstein have different setups, and you can't really do that. Marshall Islands is definitely leading the pack of offering flexibility on that sense to be more community focused and decentralized governance.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, Rob,
Yeah,
you
sounds good.
really paved the way for all the others. You should ask
Yes.
for a discount for next year for that.
Yeah.
Oh, we already got it.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah,
Then everybody's happy. That's
yeah.
good. Yeah. Okay, what else? Some more important informations. So how we will define it is that the members of these Marshall Island DAO will be all Shimmer token holders. So this basically means that everybody that holds Shimmer tokens is, first of all, a member of this DAO, and therefore, in his governance actions that he or her is doing with their tokens, protected under the limited liability protection and the operational agreement of the Marshall Island DAO, which is a really nice thing because it basically takes away this risk of forming a general partnership by participating in random governance votes, um, because there is not a general partnership anymore, and so you are not liable with your personal yeah, belongings to any claims that could be brought to law. It's always going to be the Marshall Island LLC DAO that basically puts their umbrella and protection over the Shimmer token holders in any governance vote that they do. That is following the governance framework as we have specified it. That's the important thing. So it's not covering everything that anyone does with Shimmer tokens, but as long as it's following the governance framework as we have specified it, because this governance framework is part of the Marshall Island DAO operational agreement, the Shimmer token holders automatically receive the liability protection in their governance activities from the Marshall Island DAO. And that's a really plus here. And as we have defined it in the specification for the Treasury, for the operation of the Treasury, there will be several occasions that the Shimmer token holders will be asked to make decision in the grant program. These are basically the big decisions for funding of high tier projects. I think tier 4 is everything above 200 or 250K US dollar. There would need to be a community vote if such a grant application will be accepted. So it's not something that the grant committee can decide alone. And in that case, there would need to be a governance vote following the procedures of the governance framework, and the Shimmer token holders would then decide. And with this decision, they would automatically act as a governance body in the DAO LLC. Some other things would be if the community is unhappy with the grant reviewer or with this whole thing. The community can initiate a vote to replace the grant reviewer, to shut this whole operation thing down. They could vote to put more budget into the grant program. They could vote to extend the grant program for another year. And all these governance actions would be covered under the liability shield of the Marshall Island DAO LLC. And that's actually really a good thing for everybody that parties. You basically don't need to worry that you're without knowledge or without your will being part of such a strange general partnership legal thing that some lawyer in the end could try to sue you. Because there will always be the Marshall Island thing protecting the voters in governance.
Yeah. It's almost like most DAOs will, if they're having like legit legal protection, they issue their governance voting token, and then upon sort of acquiring that, someone's taking that, where we're almost like going into a realm that hasn't really been done before, because we can do layer one token voting. And other ones, let's say something like Cardano, like they just don't even have legal protection at all. But the fact that we want community, which we do want community, to one, have ultimate oversight over the committee and how it works in the Treasury, and also like tier 4, that would be a community vote. We're kind of bridging that, and but it's good because it being the Marshall Islands, we can write that in, and then we can give protection to everyone, and then also we don't have to mint a new governance voting token, which would kind of be a pain in the ass.
Yes. Yeah, Shimmer tokens will be the thing. One thing I want to mention also, what we are already preparing in the operational agreement, and we're writing it already in, is that not only layer 1 tokens, Shimmer tokens can be used, but also the Shimmer tokens that will be held in the EVM and in the smart contract chains that will follow then. Because very likely, hopefully, a lot of people will use their Shimmer tokens to play around with them in DeFi apps, stake them or whatever, and have them basically sitting in the EVM chain. There are voting tools for smart contracts like Snapshot and stuff like this. So basically, we would be able to implement smart contract-based voting with Shimmer tokens on layer 2, also into the voting mechanism of this whole thing. Yeah, and so basically, it's kind of prepared already because it will actually happen, and then the people don't need to withdraw their Shimmer tokens from the EVM down into the Firefly wallet again to vote. So basically, you can keep them in the EVM, have them somewhere staked or in a liquidity pool, whatever, and still be able to participate in some votes if they want.
So that's saying, like, just so I understand, I didn't. So if Tangle Swap, they're going to be built on the EVM or Shimmer C or whoever,
Yeah.
and if I then put funds onto Tangle Swap so I can use their services, then I can still vote, because technically the tokens would then move the layer to EVM, right? As long as
depends. So when you have tokens locked in an application like TangleSwap, so you basically then likely not, because you send the tokens to a smart contract. But if you hold them in your MetaMask wallet in the EVM, you can use them for voting without withdrawing them down to the Firefly wallet again. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And that of course only counts for real Shimmer tokens. Yeah. So no other token will be accepted for the governance there. So whatever Lumi or whatever Bolt or Soon token or stuff like this, all this will not work. Only original Shimmer tokens, of course.
Okay.
And then pretty soon, I mean, we are in a team. We have a team that is building the Gnosis multisig wallet already for Shimmer, so that basically there will be a Gnosis multisig wallet available where you can use original Shimmer tokens. But this is also still in development, so we don't know when this will be finished. But once that's finished, then the committee can basically receive all the rest of the budget of this 27 million. Yeah. I don't know, maybe the 100K, there will be very likely a second instruction of another 100K after a couple of weeks if it's needed. That's no issue at all. But once the Gnosis wallet is ready to use on Shimmer, then all the other tokens that are still there will be transferred into this Gnosis multisig wallet, and the committee and the DAO will hold then the full budget of this 15% that was decided to give them for a year. Yeah? But that's really depending on the technical process of creating this multisig for Shimmer, which as always, ETAs are flexible here. Yeah, this is basically what I wanted to tell. Like I said, we are in close contact in drafting this operation agreement and make it really as close to what we have decided and designed as possible. Make it very, very specific. It's like, I mean, it's like really you are drafting legal contracts, and so working together with lawyer is always a kind of a complex thing because lawyers and legal contracts, they need to use a certain wording to make it stand into court. So that's quite of a task in the moment that we're going through. Also with the TEA, I'm basically the whole week only reviewing legal documents. But yeah, we're really looking forward. And the good thing is that Paolo, the lawyer from Italy, he has some good experience in this. He has done a couple of these Marshall Island setups already. And so we know what to expect there, and it looks really, really good. And also Adam, the guy from MeDAO, they're really relaxed with. There just need to be a couple of terms that are absolutely enforced by the Marshall Island government that needs to be in the contracts, and the rest around that is super flexible. Yeah, there are also some things like usually you would in DAOs you would have to have a member list where it's basically this member list is coming also from the corporate world where you usually would put in the name and addresses of all stakeholders and stuff like this. But all this stuff is not needed in Marshall Islands. So our member list will be the Tangle basically and all the addresses that hold Shimmer tokens. And it's as it's a ledger and it's an immutable thing, you are not required to have a bookkeeping around that because all information around who did own which Shimmer token at which point in time and participate in the vote and all the things, it's all tracked in the Tangle and in the Shimmer network. And so all these things can just be DLT specific implemented into the Marshall Island agreements. And they are super cool and super flexible around that. And I just say basically, okay, give me your money and we will be happy with it. Yeah. Good. Another point JD was bringing up basically was how to name this whole thing.
Mm.
And you made a little poll in the governance channel already, and seems there is a very clear successor in the moment, which would say, okay, this whole thing should be called Tangle Community Treasury. I really like it. It's a perfect name, actually. I don't know. Has anybody other suggestions or any comments or that, or is anybody happy to go in this direction?
And just to give a background as to why change it from Shimmer Community Treasury to something Tangle, if someone hasn't read that thread, was that looking at the operating agreement, the Marshall Island DAO, and how much cost it goes into kind of making it like, we always said we would test sort of this treasury, this community treasury in Shimmer. And then, if it works, then now we have something to build upon for the IOTA community treasury, the 50 TI that's sitting there. And,
Absolutely.
We need smart contracts on mainnet. But if this is a success, now rather than having to then spend another $25,000 setting up another MyDAO, and all the time in that, and then have two different sort of DAOs working with each, $250,000 running costs, we can look at combining them, and then keeping things efficient and keeping more of the funds for the community. So if we name the DAO Shimmer, then it kind of makes an issue later on, which we do something that's a little bit more broad. And who knows? I mean, I don't know what's going on with Assembly, or maybe some new token is made and it becomes a community. Who knows? So I think, something, and Philo had said it, when we were talking one day, like Tangle covers kind of all of it. So, yeah, hence the reason to change the name to sort of Tangle something that kind of then is more broad and allows the Marshall Islands to, add assets under it without having to spend all the cost in the formation.
Yeah.
I was thinking that should be a name that would just be unique and memorable, like Moloch DAO. Moloch DAO has nothing to do with the content or the meaning of what it does, but it's memorable and unique.
Mhm.
But this is fine. This is fine.
I mean,
Community Treasury.
if somebody comes up with a great name, like, I don't know, Butterfly DAO, or I have no idea. Cool, we can.
Valley DAO.
Yeah, it's not something that needs to be fixed now, but I mean, it would need to be fixed to submitting the operational agreement. So, yeah, in the next 1-2 weeks, if somebody has a cool idea, we can do a couple of more polls or things like this, run it a bit through the community, but we shouldn't be held back by a name.
Yeah.
And like JD said, this whole thing is a test for the big IOTA treasury, but also, in my opinion, I mean, the decision by the IOTA community was basically give this 50 TI into the hand of a DAO. Here we have a DAO. I don't actually see a reason to not implement the 50 TI IOTA tokens into this DAO. Potentially form a second committee. Maybe the community, we can ask them, okay, do you want to basically make this budget to the same committee or have other people handle the IOTA? But this is all possible under the Marshall Island thing. You can just implement a second group of committee members that only takes care of the IOTA tokens. But I think, personally, I don't think that's necessary, because those people will then have gained experience over those months handling the Shimmer Treasury, and I don't see a lot of logical reasons to not also implement this thing there. Also, the good thing is that we are able to change those things very, very easily, because we will only put the links to the documents in GitHub into this operational agreement in Marshall Islands. So it's not something that whenever we decide to change a little paragraph in the text or in the meaning of the governance framework, we would need to pay the lawyers to change all this thing, because they will always just say, okay, the main reference and the ruling set can be found in GitHub, in this repository, in this document. And if the community wants to change anything in the way this DAO is running or in the rule sets of the governance framework, we will have a proposal, we will have a poll, and we will have a vote. And if the vote says, okay, change paragraph X to paragraph epsilon and change this to that and implement voting functionality like this, or change the quorum, or whatever we want to change as a community in the rule sets that govern this whole thing, we can change it in a vote. We change it in this GitHub document, and this automatically makes it implemented in the way the Marshall Island DAO is operated. And that's really, really a neat thing, because otherwise you would really have to have duplicated copies of all those documents in paper form in an office in the Marshall Islands somewhere, and then you would need to have a notary approve changes and stuff like this. And the way GitHub works with signed commits and basically an unchangeable, provable history of changes, of documents, and of code, actually, it is sufficient for the Marshall Island authorities to accept this as basically binding rules of this whole thing. And that's really, really also a very nice and neat and kind of blockchain-like feature that they accept to the rule sets. Yeah. So all in all, looks really, really good. As soon as we have kind of a final version of the operation agreement. So basically what we are doing now, we are finalizing the version 3 that we have with the Italian lawyer. Once we are happy with it, we want to run it with Anya, which is our head of legal from IOTA Foundation and the TEA, because she's also super experienced and basically get a second opinion what she thinks about this whole document, and if she would have some comments or stuff that might need to be good to be implemented. And once she is also happy, then I would say we're going to share it here with the community. So you all can have a look through it and read through it, and basically wait for the vote, and then whenever and as soon as possible, submit this thing, pay the fees in Marshall Island, and then give the authorities their hopefully short time to accept this operational agreement and to license this whole thing and to register it, and it can basically run. And in the meantime, the committee would operate under the Swiss Association, very, very independently from things that the TEA wants to do, based on the same rules that are already existing. Good. I think that was it from my side, what I wanted to run with all of you. Questions, comments, hey ho, or no, that's shit, you should stop all that. Up to you. Yeah. Good. No, I mean, if everybody's happy with this whole thing, like I said, we're here to ask questions, to answer questions, and if things are unclear about this whole stuff, really, really happy to give some more details. If anybody wants to know anything around this whole stuff, just speak. Okay. If you're all happy, then I'm also very happy. Or did I hear something? JD, you want to say something?
No.
No. Yeah, no. Okay, cool.
Seems like everyone.
So then, let's say this. As soon as we have something to show, we'll show it. If not, JD, do you want to run the naming thing through the community a little bit over Twitter or stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. And yeah, I will basically. I mean, to me, it seemed like really it's the Tangle Community Treasury, but I'll throw a few other out there, and then maybe ask for suggestions on Twitter and see if we can get some.
One thing here, as we are still a small group, remember that we had a little bit shitty situation with the domain names last time when we did this publicly, because some very nice person did just buy the domain names that we actually had chosen and asked for a ridiculous amount of money to give it. So whoever you have been, FUCKU, but we should be careful to not run into the same situation and go now public with domain names that we have not yet secured somehow.
Well, let me just take a look. What's the current poll looking like?
Yeah. Just go with what we have. We don't have to go crazy.
What I'm gonna do is, it seems like everyone wants Tangle Community Treasury, so maybe I'll just. I mean, it's not much. It's like $20-$30 or something. I'll buy that domain, and then go public. So at least no one can buy that one. And if for some reason the community happens to go with something else, and someone goes and buy it, well, we'll just have to go with the one that we own. We're not going to pay.
If everything goes wrong, I'm holding Shimmer.community, so that would be the last anchor if we don't have anything else.
Sure. I mean, we still have Shimmer Gov Community as well. Oh, that's a question. Would we want, before that, let's say we went with Tangle, let's say everyone wanted Tangle Community Treasury. Would we want Tangle Community Treasury Community? Do we want tanglecommunitytreasury.org, .com, .io?
I think .org is difficult to get.
Okay.
Because then you have to prove that you are an organization to get an org. In the end, I think do com. It's cheap and everybody. You maybe or .io or something like this. But yeah, crypto stuff sometimes uses the IO thing, but com always fits in the end.
Okay. So I don't
think
know.
you can get .org pretty easily. I've gotten .orgs without any jumping through any. There are ones like .us, .gov, but I think .org is fine.
Okay.
So I can get tanglecommunitytreasury.org if we wanted to. Do we want to keep it Tangle Community Treasury in the website name, or do we want just Tangle Treasury?
Shorter is always better.
Try to get tct.org. I don't think you'll be successful, but it's worth a 1 in a million.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. Short is always good. Yeah.
$70 if we wanted that. Tangle, let me see Tangle Treasury. So we could do tangletreasury.org.
That's cool.
TangleCTreasury.org.
TangleDAO is gone already. TangleDAO.com is definitely not available. That I know that. But yeah, Tangle Treasury is.
Try TangleDAO. Try TangleDAO.org.
That is available if we wanted it.
Oh, that's nice.
That's nice.
TangleDAO.org. Okay. And then that would come to the Treasury website essentially. And yeah. And that would be good. And yeah, that sounds I like that. Cool. That's kind of snazzy.
That's cool. That's a really good one. Yeah. I know the .com version I think was taken kind of years ago.
Gee.
But .org is quite nice.
Yeah, this guy went around and bought a bunch of Tangle ones.
Yeah. There's this guy, and he once a year he shows up in the Discord and says, "Hello, IOTA Foundation. Do you want to buy this domain for $25,000?" And I'm like, "Oh no, thank you. Come back next year."
Okay, tangledao.org. I like the org better, actually, to be honest. Yeah. That's more nonprofit based, I feel like.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll just pick that one up.
Nice. That's good. And then basically we can now we have now 1 or 2 or something. I mean, you could still do a kind of a selection poll between the two, but that's cool.
At least we got something.
I'm not against trying to combine the treasuries and streamline the processes, but when we were going through the guiding principles, there was a lot of discussion around keeping them separate, and so either we're going to need to adjust the guiding principles or think about why back then we didn't want to keep them the same.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I know why we want to have that a little bit separated, because it was all. I think it was because first of all, TEA or IF doesn't want to have to do anything with those IOTA tokens, so they definitely whatever would be in relation with TEA couldn't be combined. Maybe it was it in the bridge fund?
I'll tell you why. So. I think we went with that because really at the time this was all new and it was a test, and let's say the test failed. Let's say we built the Shimmer Treasury and somehow someone was able to negatively take those funds. We wanted to make sure that there was some separation, that if by the time the Shimmer Treasury formed, there was that we could access the 50 Ti. We wanted to kind of insulate that. Mm-hmm. So I think you're right, though. I think that, and again, I think let's test, and I always say we stick to it. Let's test the Shimmer Treasury. If it all works and we are happy, then we can do a process phase 1, 2, 3 vote, and we could certainly change the guiding principles to encompass that and the framework as well, because the framework is very Shimmer, and I think that is something that we will, this process is going to evolve, and we want the community to participate in those decisions. So
it would anyway need a lot of adjustments, because basically if you wanted to integrate another network, because then you would integrate the IOTA token holders as voters, there will need to be a lot of adjustments, because you will need to define which tokens are eligible for vote in this and in that. And so there's a lot of work to do to implement the IOTA into this thing. And I agree. I would definitely, or even if they are together under the same, let's say, frame organization, look to still separate things in between, so that not basically tokens from here will get spent over there and things like that. So there needs to be a very, very clever design that makes clear for what IOTA tokens can be used, for what Shimmer tokens can be used, who and when and where and things like this. So this is all stuff we'll have many months time to think about those things. And if it feels, and also, I mean, we have to talk with lawyers about that. If they say, hey, it's kind of not a cool idea, okay, my God, then we spin up a second DAO, second entity. Costs a little bit, but to be on the safe side from the legal point of view is always better than. And so, yeah, nothing set in stone here, I think.
We got a quick question. So TangleDAO.org, really nice. TangleDAO is nice. Would we want to use TangleDAO as the name of the Marshall Island entity, which also offers possibility down the road? Like, let's say more sub-DAOs work under that the main name is TangleDAO, and then it's not even specific to Treasury. Let's say a governance DAO forms and they need some legal entity, and they're a governance committee or a technical committee, whatever.
Yes, 100%. Keep it simple.
Yeah,
Okay.
and keep it very open. Like I said, if maybe we have an education initiative or an education committee or a community, whatever, it could all be implemented under this framework and under this organization, with new rule sets and all kind of other committees and people involved. Doesn't matter. But I would rather not set up for every little thing a new DAO and a new organization, and pay the lawyers and pay the government for again and again. If it could legally correctly be implemented under one organization. So the broader we can keep it in the naming, also the easier it makes it in the end to add functionalities in the future. Because basically we are building
that TangleDAO.org. You could move the governance forum to community.tangledao.org.
Yeah, you can do this. You can do this subdomain thing then, and I mean, for the domains it doesn't matter. For the name of the organization, I mean, I'm a big fan of TangleDAO thing. It's kind of it incorporates whatever we want to do in the future or whatever comes up. There is one thing already there. Of course, whatever we would want to implement, you just cannot just implement it and say, hey, now we are the Treasury Committee, now we're doing all kind of other stuff because we are called TangleDAO, so we can. You can't, because it's not part of the framework. It will always need to community decisions to do any additional things with this organization. But we should be ready to look into the future and say, okay, whatever we want to do as a community, we have here kind of a home where we can stand on legal grounds and have a flexible thing that we can use for future endeavors.
Cool. I got a side something to talk about, Philo, if we're kind of done with that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So just want to say to the group, because I know Garrett just posted the MPC as that's been moving along, and Garrett reached out to me and kind of wanted some community involvement in this, and it's a test phase, and he tagged the Shimmer Gov Twitter, but it's not at all this governance community. What I had suggested in the discourse was that, hey, myself and a couple volunteers from the committee and from the community can run one of these MPC nodes as a community, but not. How do you differentiate? Not this governance community. So this is totally on our own. It's myself, Linus, and Werner. And Werner's doing a friggin' awesome job setting this up.
Yeah.
It's just in the test phase, and then we're kind of testing it. We're all covering the fees on it, and then if it works and if it goes down, and if the community wants to officially adopt, that's something that's down the line. So just want to let it know the separation that, that's
cool.
not this kind of.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I fully understand and I'm kind of supported, but I just say we have currently nothing implemented for the Treasury Committee that says, run an MPC node.
Right.
That's basically not part of the job and not of the business, and also not something that the community voted to pay for, because this will also be kind of hours of work and things like this. So absolutely cool initiative to run that, and I know Werner is actually the right man to do that. But yeah, just try. We always have to be careful to not say, okay, the community treasury is running the MPC node, as long as it is not decided by the community that the community treasury should do that. Yeah.
Right. And then I'm going to do some posts to clarify that this isn't even a community initiative. It's just more 3 people from the community trying to be involved.
I mean, we could also say basically that the forum moderators run it or whatever. Yeah, I mean, we have this all kind of different groups here or subgroups. We all meet together here. We are a loose selection of individuals that meet every Thursday to talk about governance. And whatever we want to do is cool, but we shouldn't always say that we are basically the speaking for everyone or on behalf of everyone in around governance. Yeah, these whole things can merge together in smaller groups. They do some initiatives and pretty cool. And that's a good thing. Amazing. Until then, if nobody else has any questions or additions, I'll say see you again next Thursday, 3 p.m. With hopefully some more updates and hopefully some news from our beloved Firefly team. And see you then, I would say. Yeah, bye and thanks everybody for joining.
Yo.
Bye.
Thanks, Philo.
Bye.
Bye.